Shalom alaikum, ladies and gentlemen. This is your host, Dr. Coker, with the program Bible Explains It All. Thank you very much for joining us this beautiful Saturday morning from Dallas, Texas. I'm your host, Dr. Coker. And when I say Shalom alaikum, which means peace be with you, and this is an Aramaic word, and I use it for every program. Thank you very much for joining us and watching us from all over the world. And we really love it. We try to bring the topics which are near and dear to your heart, but you do not see anyone talking about it. So that's all this program is about. So you do not see probably in your church or other places. I'm not saying that not anyone, any church does not talk about it, probably, but you do not see it very often talking about those topics. So today our topic is this: the segregation and the racism in the church. Now, this is just a very touchy topic, because when you think about this, the place of worship should be the place where there should be no racism and there's no segregation. Now, let's take the beautiful country of United States of America, which I love dearly and the most. If you go like on Sunday morning, you see the most segregated place on the face of the earth is the church. I'm not talking about it's just like the segregation is just only rampant only among some certain race or some certain class of people. The race, I'm not talking about the whites or not talking about the blacks, I'm not talking about the browns. They are all racist in the church. Am I saying 100%? I'm not saying that. I'm so sorry. Please do not take any statement and generalize it. So I'm just talking probably the good portion or the good percentage in the church probably practicing and sometime probably don't even know that what's going on in the church. Now, we just talked about Martin Luther King Jr., so I'm just going to recite one of his. He said, "I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, by the content of their character." My brother and sister, this morning, again, this is, my name is Dr. Coker with the program Bible Explain It All. We are just thinking and we are just bringing, and when I said thinking, I'm just like saying, we are not probably 100% true on what we are bringing. Only from the Bible, we are 100% true. When I would just say it, anything, I just add into it, probably there is some kind and point of refutation, so you can refute it, or you can just like say, hey man, this is your thinking. So you can probably, in that instance, you can send me a question via Facebook, or you can probably in the comment section, go in the comment section and you say, what you're saying is probably does not make sense, or whatever you want to do. So this morning we are talking about the racism in the church, not only in the white church or the black church, but the brown church, because I belong to the subcontinent from India and Pakistan, the most specifically. So from that point, if you see, even in the brown church, because I just go to I happen to be in the white church, I happen to be in the black church, I say segregation everywhere. I say the racism, I see the racism everywhere where it is. Is that according to the biblical idea or biblical ideology? And that's what Jesus Christ set his church upon? Absolutely not. That's not correct. This is not what Jesus Christ dreamed about the church, or this is not, probably I should not say dreamed about, this is not what the disciples, they have probably vision the church should be, or Jesus Christ's church should be. And Jesus Christ used very, very sharp and I would say, criticize the people who are doing it. He called them the thieves and the robbers. I'm not saying that every church is doing this, but if you are somehow, some way, fashion, or form, is just like forming your church around some kind of race or some kind of language. You know how many times there's a problem that if you are probably white, you cannot be a pastor in a predominantly black church. If you are black, you cannot be a pastor in predominantly white church, because people, they don't say it, but they just start leaving the church. And probably I just told you how to eradicate it. We're just going to go back at the end of the session or at the end of this program. I will just tell you how to eradicate this problem, because when we bring some problem here at this program, then we just also try to bring the solution to it. Same thing with, and not only the racism, the prejudice is just being done on the basis of national origin. What is meant by national origin? Which country do you belong to? Because there are a lot of immigrants here in America, and if you see, the church is not segregated on the basis on the of which color you are, but it is also segregated what is your national origin among the immigrants. And that is so disturbing, isn't it? Probably I can just give you an example. I said on the top of the hour, if you put an Indian pastor in a predominantly Pakistani church, or the Pakistani pastor in the predominantly Indian church, there is a problem. And there's then there's a leadership tussle going on among those churches also. Man, are you a church or a den of a thief or a robber? Excuse my words, this is not me saying it, but this is exactly what he used. Because why? Because we have made a church some kind or form of a business place where we just want to go and just want to meet our special kind of people, where they are just drive on the basis of the race or drive on the basis of the national origin. And that's what we just want to go and see the church. Man, that's not the church. If you just want to go and see, what is the definition of some kind of club? It's just people that just drive around for the similar activities or the similar interests. But what is your interest if you just want to be a church and not to be? The church meaning is derived right from the biblical principles, and those principles are coming directly from the Jesus Christ, and those Jesus Christ is coming directly from the Father, the God, and the God is coming directly from the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So that's what the church should be. Now, I just brought some statistics for you this morning. And if you see, 67% say their church has done enough to become more ethnically diverse. What about your church? Okay, if you're listening this morning, has your church have done anything to become more ethnically diverse? First of all, my brother and sister, the Christianity is about love for everyone. You cannot say, because Jesus died on the cross for everyone. He did not die for a certain race or certain national origin. The minute you have that kind of stigma or this thing in your mind come about it, so just think about that you are running a den of a thieves or the den of a robbers, because now you are just because what Jesus Christ said about those people. And you are just kind of running some business, and you're not interested. Because I tell you one thing, if you will just go to the heaven one day, you will be very, very disappointed to see that the people there are not from the similar color. The people there are not from the same national origin. So then you'll be just man, what I've just been thinking about, probably in hell, God, for the people who just want to be the similar and not to be, so probably God will just put the people of the similar national origin at the same place. I'm not saying this is biblical, and I'm just probably criticizing the fact of just thinking that thinking. I'm criticizing that thinking. If you really looked at it, So I'm just telling you the statistics. 40% want to see more diversity in the church in America, and 1% of evangelicals say their church is diverse enough. I'm not saying that, if people, they do not want you in that church, in specific church, you just impose yourself, or you just force yourself in that church. That's not, I'm just thinking, but I'm just thinking, what exactly the Church of Christ should look like. That's what the point is this morning. Because if you see, probably all over the world, I would just say, if you're Egyptian, you go to Egyptian church. Okay, and I understand if you're Indian, you go to it, and I do understand. Sometimes people, they have probably the similar likings and the similar activities and the similar hymns. They probably just raise up singing together. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay, so I'm not saying there's anything wrong if you go to some ethnically diverse church where you just brought up into some fashion or form and you'd like to sing those songs together and you want to sing those songs in worship. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying that. Okay, what I'm just saying is this: if you are deliberately putting that church together and you just like probably you're unwelcoming to the people who want to join that church somehow, you unwelcome those people on the basis of their skin color, on the basis of their national origin, and you just probably try to snub them or impede them from the leadership places and do not want them to go to the leadership places, or you talk about those people on the behind their backs that look at these people, so then you have a problem on your hand. That's exactly what we are talking about this morning. And that's what I'm just talking. This is not the Church of Christ. Because if you see, when God, and I will just go back to the statistics, but I'm just probably just kind of getting fired up here probably. When you see Jesus Christ, when he sent his disciple, but at that time, before Jesus Christ, the message of God, which is the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, is only the message to the certain people, and that certain people were the people of Israel, Israelites who came from the tribe of Jacob, who came from the tribe of Abraham. But through Jesus Christ, now that message has gone throughout the world. And thanks very much to Thomas the Doubter, who went out to India. I mean, Jesus Christ didn't say, man, listen, just preach among Israelites. He did not say, just preach among the Hebrew people. He said, go and preach this gospel all over the world. And I think I just came to Christ, thank you to Thomas. He's one of the Jesus disciples. He sailed out to where? He sailed out to India and preached the gospel. And that's why I am Christian today. As somehow, some way, fashion or form, he's just like a great help. And, he got assassinated by Hindu Brahmins. Now, 34% of Americans who say they have worship regularly where there's a minority, 22%. Now, the thing is this, my brother and sister, one more very important is there's not much urgency about diversity. Half of those surveyed think the churches are too segregated, but the 44% they disagree on this. Now, what about your church this morning? What about your church? Is your church segregated? Is your church segregated on the lines of national origin? Because if you see that, do you see your church is just segregated on the lines of race? Is your church segregated on the lines of, the money is the biggest problem in any worship place. I'm just jumping from the church to the other worship places, because the other worship places, I do have friends from all other worship places and I love them. They are my friends, they are my brothers, I love them all. And you know what? They have the same problem. The money is the root cause of all the evil in every worship place, and the leadership. That's what the problem is. Because if you put God back into the church, if you put Jesus back into the church, then you do not have this problem, because Jesus is not a segregator. He did not segregate his church, because he sent disciples all over the world, and that's why we are. Now I'm just going to say John 7:24, do not judge according to the appearance, but judge the righteous judgment. And then the Peter started speaking, Acts 10:34. Now I truly understand that God does not show favoritism in dealing with people. If God does not show favoritism and you are showing the favoritism, then you are not the church of God, but you are the church of something else. That's exactly I just want to say. Now I just promise you, I will just tell you how to eradicate that problem from the church, Now, I do have a dream how to segregate this problem. And you know what that dream is? If you're listening to me carefully, listen to me. The problem cause, I said, is what? The money. The problem cause is the leadership. Now, what if we just eradicate that problem if there is no money? What if the pastor is not a paid pastor? I'm sorry to say this. I'm not saying, okay, but just listen to me thoroughly and then you just come back there. I'm not against any pastor here. I'm not against any church here. I'm just saying, what I'm just seeing, if there is a problem, that's the problem I'm talking about, okay? So what if there's a no paid pastor, all the tithings, and I do have this dream, what about the tithings, or all these offerings, instead of just going, those offerings are going to the pastor and the leadership, or I don't know what if those tithings and offerings are going to the people in the church, the people who need the most. Somebody has probably cannot pay his mortgage. That offering for that Sunday goes to that person. What about the person, he's in a dire need, because his child is sick? It goes to that. What about for the outreach purpose? The offering is going to some missionary who is just being a missionary, not because he's a missionary, he's a paid missionary, because he's a God's broker. I'm so sorry to say this. When it's a God's broker, I mean, so there are probably somebody's just working on a commission, and he's saying, I'm just going to drive that much commission because I'm taking the message of cross to the people. So that's God. I mean, what about, it's just like helping him in order to facilitate something so he can take this message of cross to the other nations. What about if you have a church where the leadership is mixed? There's a leadership. The leadership is not the leadership of a certain color, but the leadership is just like the leadership looks like probably in the heaven. What about your church? Looks like the church exactly how the heaven looks like. My brother and sister, this is a very, very hard thing to do, because what happens is very hard when you are in the leadership position to give away that leadership, because we are, in a way or sense, we are spelled gods. We are, because God has made in our own image, and we are spelled like small g gods. Okay? So, but you do not have to be this. This morning, I will tell you, just go and love everyone, hate nobody, love everyone, and do not, if you're just going to the church this Sunday morning, next Sunday morning, tomorrow, just think about this, how does your church look like? Does your church look like the den of robbers and thieves, or your church look like where everybody is welcome, and everybody is welcome on the merit of the Lord Jesus Christ? Thank you very much to all of you watching, and God bless you all. This is Dr. Coker with the program Bible Explains It All. Shalom Alauk. Until next time, I see you right here, and we just bring you the topics which is dear and near to your heart. God bless you. Bye-bye.